Have you ever wondered what separates a piece of Amish furniture, a dining table that will be passed to grandchildren, a cabinet that tightens rather than loosens with age from the flat pack furniture that most modern households replace every decade, and what specific skills produce the difference? The apprenticeship. Amish woodworking skills are not acquired in a trade school or a weekend course. They are transmitted through the same apprenticeship model that has carried them across generations. A boy standing beside his father in the workshop from early childhood, holding pieces while cuts are made, handing tools as they are needed, watching the decisions that determine whether a joint fits perfectly or merely adequately. By the time an Amish craftsman is operating his own workshop, he has been in training for his entire conscious life. The knowledge he carries was transferred through the sustained proximity of a child to a man who already possessed it, the oldest and most effective method of skill transmission that human culture has ever produced. Wood selection. The first skill in Amish woodworking is not joinery and not finishing. It is wood selection, the ability to look at a board of lumber and understand what it is, what it will do over time, and what piece of furniture it is suited to become. Amish craftsmen work exclusively with solid domestic hardwoods, white oak, cherry, maple, walnut, hickory, and brown maple, each matched to the specific demands of the piece being built. White oak, historically used for ships and barrels, is selected for outdoor furniture requiring exceptional strength. Cherry deepens from a warm medium tone to rich amber over years of light exposure, a feature rather than a change. Walnut's naturally dark, refined grain requires no enhancement. Brown maple's fine, even grain suits painted pieces where surface consistency matters most. Seasoning. Wood freshly cut from a tree contains moisture that will cause it to move, shrink, and potentially warp as it dries. Furniture built from inadequately seasoned wood fails joints that fit perfectly when green open as the wood dries. Flat surfaces, cup and bow. Amish craftsmen allow cut lumber to dry through natural air drying over 6 months to a year before any joinery begins. This is one of the invisible costs that mass-produced furniture eliminates by building with particle board and MDF-engineered products that do not move because they contain no solid wood. The Amish craftsman who waits a year for lumber to season is making a decision that the furniture's owner will benefit from across decades of stable use. Mortise and tenon. The mortise and tenon joint is the foundational connection in Amish furniture construction, one of the oldest woodworking joints in human history, documented in furniture recovered from ancient Egypt, and still used today because no subsequent innovation has produced a stronger wood-to-wood connection for the applications it serves. One piece of wood is shaped at its end to produce a projecting tongue the tenon size to fit precisely into a corresponding cavity the mortise cut into the receiving piece. The fit between the two is the critical variable. A tenon slightly too small produces a joint that will loosen over time. A tenon cut to fit exactly, reinforced with wood glue, creates a mechanical connection that becomes the strongest point in the assembly rather than a potential failure point. The craftsman who cuts this joint by hand, pairing the mortise walls with a chisel, testing the fit repeatedly until the pieces come together with the resistance that signals a correct connection, is performing a skill that takes years to develop. Dovetail. The dovetail joint is the signature connection of drawer construction in Amish furniture. The joint that anyone who has opened an Amish-built drawer and looked at the corner where the front meets the side has seen, even if they did not know what they were looking at. The joint consists of interlocking wedge-shaped projections, the tails cut into one piece of wood, fitting into corresponding sockets, the pins cut into the mating piece. A dovetail joint cannot be pulled apart in the direction of the drawer's travel. The geometry locks the connection against the force experienced every time the drawer is opened. The hand-cut dovetail produced with a saw and chisel by a craftsman who has internalized the angles through years of practice has a specific visual character that the machine-cut version does not replicate. The slight variations in tail spacing, the subtle evidence of chisel work in the socket walls, the fit that is tight without being forced, these are the marks of a hand-cut dovetail visible to anyone who knows what to look for. Steam bending. One of the most technically demanding skills in Amish woodworking is steam bending, the technique that produces curved chair backs, curved cabinet doors, and rounded furniture components without cutting into the wood to create the curve. Cutting a curve from a straight board produces a weak piece. The cut necessarily crosses the wood's grain at some point, creating a section where the grain runs out of the board rather than along it, and where the wood's structural strength is significantly reduced at precisely the location that must bear load. Steam bending solves this problem by making the wood temporarily flexible rather than by cutting it into a curved shape. The process begins with selecting a piece of wood suited to bending straight, tight grain, without defects that would cause the piece to split under the bending stress. The selected piece is placed in a steam box, a sealed chamber through which steam is passed and left until the heat and moisture have penetrated the wood fibers sufficiently to make them pliable. The piece is then removed from the steam box and immediately bent around to form a shaped jig that holds the wood in the desired curve while it cools and the fibers set permanently in their new position. The entire operation from steam box to form must happen in minutes. The window during which the wood remains pliable closes as it cools, and a piece that cools before it is fully bent around the form will crack rather than curve. The hand plane. The hand plane is the tool that produces the surface quality that distinguishes Amish furniture from furniture finished entirely by machine. A hand plane consists of a sharpened iron blade set at a precise angle in a body that holds it steady as it is pushed across the wood surface, shaving material in controlled increments that can be as thin as a few thousandths of an inch. The surface that a properly set and sharp hand plane produces is qualitatively different from the surface produced by a machine sander. The plane surface is technically flat, genuinely flat in the geometric sense, because the plane's rigid body bridges any low spots rather than following them the way a flexible sanding pad does. The plane surface also has a specific visual quality, a slight burnish, produced by the cutting action of the blade that reflects light differently from a sanded surface and that responds to finish differently, absorbing it more evenly and producing a depth that experienced craftsmen and knowledgeable furniture buyers can identify by sight and touch. Amish craftsmen use hand planes for the final surface preparation on pieces where the quality of the surface will determine the quality of the finished piece. Tabletops, cabinet faces, chair seats. The plane is also used for fitting for the precise removal of material from a joint surface or a door edge until the fit is exactly right, a task for which machine tools offer no equivalent precision. No nails. The most frequently cited characteristic of Amish furniture, that it is built without nails, is accurate but requires clarification to be fully understood. The Amish do not build furniture without any fasteners under any circumstances. Wood glue is used consistently to reinforce joints. Nails or wooden pegs may appear in non-structural locations where their use does not affect the piece's primary structural integrity. What the no-nails principle actually means is that the structural connections in Amish furniture, the joints that carry load, resist movement, and determine whether the piece holds together across decades of use, are wood-to-wood connections rather than fastener-dependent ones. A nail or screw driven through wood creates a connection that depends on the fastener's grip in the wood fibers, a grip that loosens over time as the wood cycles through moisture changes and the fastener's metal fatigues. A mortise-and-tenon or dovetail joint creates a mechanical connection between two pieces of wood that becomes more stable over time as the glue cures fully and the wood reaches equilibrium with its environment. The piece of mass-produced furniture that wobbles after 5 years of use is wobbling because its fastener-dependent connections have loosened. The Amish dining table that is still tight and solid after 50 years is still tight because its structural connections were never dependent on fasteners in the first place. The difference between these two outcomes is not the quality of the wood, it is the method of joining it. The finish. The finish applied to Amish furniture is the last skill in the production process, and the one that determines how the piece presents to the world and how it survives the decades of use that follow. Amish workshops use a range of finishing materials, natural oils, traditional varnishes, and in many workshops, catalyzed conversion varnish, a two-component finish that cures through a chemical reaction rather than simply drying, producing a hard, durable film that resists moisture, heat, and daily abrasion at a level comparable to commercial and institutional furniture finishes. The application process for high-quality Amish finishing involves multiple stages, each coat applied, allowed to cure fully, then lightly sanded before the next coat goes on. The sanding between coats is not cosmetic. It knocks down the surface irregularities produced by the previous coat's application and provides mechanical adhesion for the subsequent coat. A finish applied in multiple thin coats over properly prepared wood, with sanding between each, produces a surface that is smoother, more uniform, and more durable than the same amount of finish applied in fewer, thicker applications. The final surface is protective without obscuring the grain and figure of the wood beneath it, a quality that requires both the right finishing material and the patience to apply it correctly across the multiple stages that the process demands. The craftsman who rushes the finish compromises work that the joinery and the wood selection made excellent. The craftsman who finishes with the same patience he brought to every prior stage produces a piece that will be passed down. The market. The economic output of Amish woodworking is significant enough that researchers have documented Amish-made furniture as comprising approximately 10% of all domestic furniture shipments in the United States, a market share held by a community that represents a fraction of 1% of the American population. Building furniture by hand in workshops without electric grid connections, using skills transmitted through apprenticeship rather than formal trade education. This market position is not the result of price competition. Amish furniture is more expensive than mass-produced furniture at every comparable point of comparison. It holds its market share because a specific segment of American furniture buyers has decided that the quality difference is worth the price difference that a dining table built from solid white oak with mortise and tenon joints. A hand-planed surface is a different category of object from a dining table built from particle board with pocket hole joinery and a machine-applied veneer finish. And that the category difference justifies the price difference across the decades of service life that the two pieces will deliver. The Smithsonian Institution has recognized Amish craftsmanship as significant enough to display in its collections an acknowledgement that what Amish woodworkers produce is not simply functional furniture, but culturally and artistically significant work that deserves preservation and documentation. The craftsman in a Holmes County workshop who is fitting a dovetail joint by hand today is practicing a skill that the Smithsonian considers worth displaying and that the American furniture market considers worth paying a premium for. The two judgments arrive at the same conclusion through different routes. The skills described in this video, wood selection, seasoning, mortise and tenon joinery, dovetail construction, steam bending, hand planing, fastener-free structural connection, and patient multi-stage finishing are not secrets in the sense of being hidden or proprietary. They are documented in books, taught in craft schools, and practiced by skilled woodworkers outside the Amish community. What makes them secret in the sense that the title of this video uses the word is that they are rarely seen in practice, rarely understood in their full depth by people who purchase the furniture they produce, and rarely transmitted through the sustained apprenticeship model that the Amish use, a model that produces a depth of skill that classroom instruction and online tutorials cannot replicate. A person who spends 3 years reading about dovetail joinery and a person who spends 3 years cutting dovetails alongside a father who has cut 10,000 of them are not equally skilled. The 3 years of doing alongside a master is the Amish educational model for woodworking, and it is the reason that the furniture produced in Amish workshops has a quality that the furniture produced in factories with better equipment and more efficient processes does not match. The factory produces furniture at a rate and price point that the Amish workshop cannot. The Amish workshop produces furniture at a quality level and a service life that the factory cannot. The furniture sitting in an Amish craftsman's workshop today will be in someone's home in 100 years. The person who owns it then will not know the man who made it. They will know the work. And the work will still be excellent.